If you remember the black bezel Rolex GMT Master 116710LN, and whilst it was in production at the same time as a Batman 116710 BLNR, there was one thing very different between the two models. That is, where the Batman always offered the pop of color with blue and black bezel, making it a touch flashy, bold and a louder watch for some who preferred these attributes. The black bezel LN GMT was a bit subtle and understated offering in the GMT range, where from 2014 until 2018 you could buy either of them based on your lifestyle, preference and choice as to whether you prefer a more muted version of the GMT or the one with a bit of flash on the bezel, having that in-your-face character. When the black bezel GMT was discontinued, it was also the only GMT with the green text on the dial and the green GMT hand. Now if you look at the Rolex GMT on offer for the last 6+ years, there's a Batman and a Batgirl, which are essentially the same watches with just the difference in the bracelet type, and then there's a Pepsi. While again they are both entirely different watches in any collection and neither replaces the other. You would note that they are both a bit loud, flashy and bold watches due to the blue bezel and then blue and red bezel, making both of them recognizable with that pop-out effect in the eyes as soon as you see it on the wrist. And no option in the standard Rolex GMT range, where there was a little muted GMT Master like the Rolex Submariner, Sea Dweller or the Explorer 2. With the release of grey bezel GMT in all steel reference 126710 GR and R, we might have had the return of similar offering from Rolex as the all-black bezel 116710 LN, but this time with a subtle and muted color combination of black and grey. Yet the green GMT hand and the text on the dial remains, as was in the black bezel GMT LN. So where you had the option from Rolex in the GMT range to buy a variation with a pop of color with Pepsi and the Batman around, now you also have the option to buy a monochromatic and a bit subtle offering from the brand in the GMT range, this time in grey and black. Yet there is a sprite, but being a left-handed watch, it's such a different watch that it may or may not even be an option for standard right-handed crown watches. It is worth noting that Rolex only came out with the technology and ability to produce bicolor ceramic bezels in 2014 when the Batman was released. So for Rolex to go back to all black GMT bezel, it will arguably be a step backward, not purely from aesthetical perspective, but also from functional perspective too. Because now the grey lower half of the bezel in the new GMT, while still understated and subtle, still differentiates between the daytime of 24 hours versus the black upper half of the GMT bezel to represent the darker time or the night time of the day or 24 hours. We saw the same grey bezel already in the Rolex GMT range in two-tone configuration of oyster steel and yellow gold, and now we have the same in all stainless steel, which simply goes to show the versatility and sensibility of grey and black bezel. This is currently also the only GMT model that is offered in 3 configurations, that is grey and black oyster steel on Jubilee bracelet, grey and black oyster steel on oyster bracelet, and then lastly grey and black oyster steel and yellow gold on Jubilee bracelet, with the Pepsi and Batman only offered in oyster steel with the variation of bracelets. So does it actually work? Well, we have already seen it work on the two-tone configuration, and it truly looks spectacular in black and gold, and I've covered its video separately too. I also made a video on the same GMT in stainless steel on oyster bracelet earlier, so this video is purely to show how it looks on the Jubilee bracelet, and I personally simply love the GMT on the Jubilee bracelets too. So what exactly is the difference in terms of wearability of this grey bezel GMT versus Pepsi and the Batman? They are basically identical watches in terms of technical specs and movements inside, with only the difference in the color of the bezel and the text on the dial. And is it a small difference? It's a day and night. While there's no wrong choices with either of them, but if you really wanted a subtle, understated, elegant and yet classy timepiece, where when others look at your wrist, they don't necessarily recognize what it is due to the subtle monochromatic form. Yet when you look at your wrist, you know instantly in your heart, you have one of the best watches in the world on, and you enjoy and experience all that finest watchmaking has to offer. And a masterpiece that took over 7 decades for world's largest watchmaking brand such as Rolex to continuously progress, refine and improve before they could reach this particular form of the GMT Master. How will you not take pride in owning and wearing a piece like this?